history is littered with the remains of the virtuous, leaders, visionaries, and dreamers who believed goodness alone would protect them. But is virtue, in its purest form, a strength or a liability? Can excessive kindness become a self-inflicted wound? Is unguarded virtue a beacon of light or an invitation for exploitation? The harsh truth is this: morality without strategy is a slow form of self-destruction. Niccolo Machiavelli saw the world not as we wish it to be, but as it truly is, governed by power, self-interest, and deception. He argued that morality, when untempered by pragmatism, makes one vulnerable. In a world of wolves, blind goodness turns you into prey. In this exploration of Machiavelli's philosophy, we'll uncover why strategic ruthlessness isn't just a tool of the powerful, it's a necessity for survival. Through history, psychology, and human behavior, we'll analyze why moral idealism, unchecked by realism, often leads to failure, and how balancing virtue with calculated strength is the key to lasting influence. Section 1. The illusion of absolute virtue. Virtue, in its absolute form, is a dangerous mirage, an ideal we chase, believing it guarantees respect, loyalty, and justice. But the reality is far more brutal. You might think unwavering goodness will shield you from harm, that your integrity alone will earn you a seat at the table of power. Yet history proves otherwise. The world does not reward those who are simply good. It rewards those who are effective. And effectiveness, as Machiavelli argued, often demands the ability to step beyond moral absolutism. A ruler must appear virtuous, but they must never be shackled by virtue. Consider the downfall of Tsar Nicholas II, a man of deep religious conviction and personal morality, yet utterly incapable of making the hard decisions necessary to preserve his rule. He believed his benevolence would keep his people loyal, that his devotion to righteousness would be enough. But when crisis struck, he hesitated, choosing morality over action. And in that hesitation, he lost everything. The same world that once admired his virtue abandoned him to the chaos of revolution. It is not kindness that preserves power. It is adaptability. Psychology reveals a harsh truth. People claim to admire goodness, but they follow strength. You may find that in your own life, your most noble intentions do not guarantee respect. Those who are too kind, too forgiving, too unwilling to play the necessary games of power are often overlooked, manipulated, or discarded. Meanwhile, those who know when to assert dominance, when to bend the rules, when to disguise their intentions, those are the individuals who rise. Strength is magnetic. People respect resilience over righteousness, decisiveness over purity. This does not mean morality is meaningless. On the contrary, it is a powerful tool, but only when wielded with strategy. If you let virtue dictate all your actions, you will find yourself at the mercy of those who do not play by the same rules. To survive, you must learn the art of controlled virtue. Appear just, but do not be enslaved by justice. Speak of fairness, but understand when fairness must be set aside. True power lies in the balance between the image of goodness and the reality of control. History, psychology, and human nature all converge on one simple reality. Absolute virtue is an illusion. It is a performance, a mask that must be worn but never believed in too fully. Machiavelli's wisdom is not an invitation to cruelty, but a call to strategic intelligence. To navigate the complexities of power, you must be willing to embrace the necessary darkness within. And once you do, you will see the world with new eyes. One that is neither good nor evil, but simply ruled by those who understand the game. But if absolute virtue is an illusion, Then what about absolute morality? Is there ever a place for true goodness in power, or is it always a facade? That is the question we must confront next. Section 2. The necessity of controlled ruthlessness. In a perfect world, kindness would be enough. You could lead with compassion, inspire through warmth, and achieve greatness by simply doing what is right. But history has shown, time and time again, that power is not sustained by kindness alone. You may want to be loved, but love is fickle. Loyalty based on affection crumbles under pressure. Fear, however, is far more reliable. This does not mean cruelty is the answer, but it does mean that strategic ruthlessness is essential. The leaders who endure are those who know when to be merciful and when to be relentless. Winston Churchill understood this balance well. During World War II, Britain needed more than just hope. It needed unwavering strength. Churchill's speeches may have stirred the hearts of his people, but it was his ruthlessness, his refusal to negotiate with Hitler, his willingness to make hard decisions, that saved Britain from collapse. He did not prioritize being loved. He prioritized victory. Likewise, Franklin D. Roosevelt, often celebrated for his charm and leadership, was not merely a friendly statesman. Behind the scenes, he wielded power with calculation, manipulating allies and enemies alike to secure America's position on the world stage. Their success was not built on kindness, but on controlled strategic force. In your own life, this principle applies just as much. Whether in business, leadership, or even personal relationships, you will find that those who command respect are not necessarily the nicest. They are the most assured. You may have seen it in the workplace. The manager who is too lenient, too eager to please, is often taken advantage of, while the one who sets firm boundaries is respected. The same dynamic plays out in social circles and even within families. If you allow yourself to be ruled by the desire to be liked, you may find yourself constantly sacrificing your own needs for the sake of others. Strength, when wielded correctly, does not push people away. It makes them trust in your ability to lead. The key is control. Machiavelli never argued for mindless cruelty. He argued for calculated action. You do not need to be feared in every moment, nor should you be heartless. But when difficult decisions arise, when people challenge your authority, when the survival of your ambitions is at stake, you must be willing to choose power over sentimentality. People will respect you, not for your kindness, but for your ability to act decisively when it matters most. This is the balance between morality and power, knowing when to be fair and when to be formidable. But if controlled ruthlessness is necessary, what happens when you lack it? What is the fate of those who refuse to embrace this darker side of leadership? To answer that, we must look at those who fell, not because they were weak, but because they were unwilling to play the game of power. Section 3. Becoming the fox and the lion. Power belongs to those who master both force and deception. You may think honesty and strength alone will carry you to success, but the world is far more complex than that. Machiavelli recognized this and offered a timeless metaphor: the lion and the fox. The lion relies on brute strength to overpower enemies, while the fox survives through cunning and trickery. If you are only a lion, you may be strong but predictable, easily deceived. If you're only a fox, you may be clever but weak, easily crushed. To truly thrive, you must learn to embody both, shifting between them as circumstances demand. Consider the leaders who have understood this balance. Julius Caesar, though a formidable general, was also a master of political maneuvering. He charmed the Roman people, outwitted rivals in the Senate, and struck strategic alliances before seizing absolute power. On the other hand, Napoleon Bonaparte, despite his genius on the battlefield, fell because he over-relied on brute force, underestimating the cunning of his adversaries. You may not be leading armies, but the lesson remains the same. Relying solely on strength or strategy is a fatal mistake. The greatest leaders, in history and in life, are those who adapt, knowing when to roar like a lion and when to weave through shadows like a fox. In your own life, this adaptability determines your success. A rigid, overly moralistic approach may seem noble, but it leaves you vulnerable. If you are too honest in business, competitors will outmaneuver you. If you are too trusting in relationships, manipulators will exploit your kindness. But deceit alone is also not the answer. Without some measure of loyalty and reliability, you will lose the trust of those who matter. The challenge is in balance. To be respected, but not feared. To be strategic, but not heartless. To be both admired and untouchable. Those who strike this balance do not simply survive, they thrive. Yet the idea of being cunning often carries a negative connotation. You may hesitate, thinking it feels manipulative or unethical. But consider this. Machiavelli never advocated for senseless cruelty or dishonesty. He understood human nature and the necessity of strategy. You do not need to betray your integrity to be effective. You need only recognize when to be cautious and when to be bold. A fox does not deceive for the sake of deception. It does so to protect itself from the predators around it. Similarly, a lion does not strike without reason. It does so to defend its power. You too must be able to discern when to act with strength and when to maneuver with intelligence. True power is not found in extremes, but in balance. Those who master the dual nature of the lion and the fox are the ones who shape history, command respect, and achieve what others cannot. But once you understand power, the final question remains: how will you wield it? That is the final and most critical choice.